Imagine this. Canada, one of the most peaceful and stable countries in the world, just made a bold move that sent shockwaves across North America. In response to a single controversial statement from former President Donald Trump, Canada has pulled the plug on a multi-billion-dollar electricity contract with the United States. Yes, you heard that right. What started as a political remark about Canada possibly becoming the 51st state has now evolved into a full-blown international energy dispute. What's next? Is this the end of a decades-long energy relationship, or is there more at stake here than just electricity? Let's break it down. In early 2025, former President Donald Trump made waves with a statement suggesting that Canada might be better off as the 51st state of the United States. It wasn't just another Trump controversy or a stray comment. It was a challenge to Canadian sovereignty that no one saw coming. For Canada, a country that prides itself on its independence and unique national identity, these words were a slap in the face. The result? A bold political and economic response that has now shaken U.S. Canada relations to their core. In retaliation to Trump's suggestion, Canada has officially ended one of the most significant energy agreements between the two countries. For over 40 years, the U.S. has relied on Canadian electricity, with the trade bringing in over $3.4 billion annually. But in a dramatic move in February 2025, Ontario imposed a 25% surcharge on all electricity exports to the U.S. Premier Doug Ford wasn't mincing words. If the U.S. is going to treat Canada like a subordinate, then Canada would use its most powerful tool to hit back. Let's talk about the immediate effects. The United States depends on Canada for about 35 terawatt-hours of electricity each year. That's enough to power millions of homes, especially in the Northeast and Midwest. Ontario alone supplies nearly 40% of Canada's total electricity exports, with states like Michigan and New York receiving a significant portion of that. But when Ontario's surcharge hit, the price of energy for U.S. consumers began to climb, almost overnight. Utility bills surged and energy companies that relied heavily on Canadian power faced major disruptions. Just a few weeks after the surcharge was implemented, U.S. electricity prices spiked by up to 12%, particularly in regions that had long depended on Canadian hydropower. The crisis was particularly acute in the Midwest, where Canadian hydropower is crucial during winter months when energy demand is at its peak. This wasn't just a theoretical loss. This was real money. The disruption forced many U.S. utilities to scramble for alternative sources, primarily natural gas, which not only increased costs, but also pushed up carbon emissions in the process. But the real story here isn't just about energy prices, it's about the broader ramifications of a political spat that has crossed into economic warfare. This wasn't a fight over tariffs or trade imbalances. This was about sovereignty, national pride, and the deep-rooted tensions between the two countries that have been building for years. Now, as we fast forward into 2025, the consequences of this energy standoff are only becoming more apparent. Canada's decision to pull the plug on its electricity exports is just the beginning. With tensions running high, Canada has announced that it will explore new markets for its energy exports, markets that don't rely on the U.S. As of now, Canada is in talks with Europe and Asia to secure long-term energy deals that could ease its dependence on American trade, but the path to diversifying Canada's energy exports is fraught with challenges. Building the infrastructure to export clean hydroelectric power across the Atlantic or the Pacific is no small feat. And in the short term, these deals won't make up for the immediate financial losses caused by the halt in United States-Canada trade. On the other side of the border, the United States government is scrambling. While President Biden has been critical of Trump's remarks, his administration has struggled to address the fallout effectively. Some U.S. states, particularly those in the Northeast and Midwest, have already begun to feel the pain. For example, New York, which receives a significant portion of its electricity from Canada, saw its energy costs climb by 10% within the first month of the surcharge being imposed. New York Governor Kathy Hochul called the surcharge a direct threat to the state's energy security and even floated the idea of alternative energy agreements with other countries to make up for the lost Canadian power. To make matters worse, Canadian energy companies including Hydro-Quebec and Manitoba Hydro have suspended or cancelled several energy projects meant to expand supply to the United States. These moves not only hurt U.S. energy prices, but also threaten clean energy initiatives, with both Hydro-Quebec and Manitoba Hydro warning that future investments in renewable energy will be re-evaluated in light of the tensions. But here's where things take another interesting turn. The rise in electricity costs in the United States has highlighted the dangers of relying too heavily on one supplier for energy. But these renewable sources are still far from being able to replace the consistent, reliable power provided by Canadian hydropower, especially for regions with high energy demands. And while energy prices are one thing, the political fallout from this dispute is another. It's no secret that the U.S. and Canada have been navigating rocky waters for some time. The 2025 energy dispute has revealed cracks in what was once a robust, decades-old energy partnership, and it's unclear how the relationship will recover. Canada, on the other hand, is using this moment to double down on its sovereignty. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has made it clear that Canada will no longer be treated as a subordinate to the United States. In his most recent address to the Canadian Parliament, Trudeau reaffirmed Canada's commitment to its clean energy goals and announced a series of new initiatives aimed at reducing the country's reliance on the United States. These include investments in domestic clean energy infrastructure, new energy partnerships with European and Asian markets, and even potential collaborations with South American countries like Brazil, which is looking to expand its own renewable energy portfolio. However, there's a fine line between asserting sovereignty and risking long-term economic damage. Scene 5. Largest trading partner. The U.S. is still Canada's largest trading partner, and the electricity trade is just one aspect of that broader relationship. Scene 6. Potential disruptions. If tensions persist, both countries could face more disruptions in other areas, from trade tariffs on Canadian goods to delays in U.S. Canada manufacturing projects. Looking ahead, it's clear that this electricity standoff is just one chapter in a much larger story about energy independence, national identity, and the future of North American diplomacy. As of now, both countries are preparing for a long game, and it's anyone's guess where this dispute will take us next. Will cooler heads prevail, and will both nations find a way back to the negotiating table? Or is this the beginning of a new era of economic and political isolation? What's clear is that Canada is sending a strong message. The era of unquestioned U.S. dominance is over. Whether the U.S. will adjust to this new reality, or whether the power struggle will escalate further, remains to be seen. But one thing is for sure, the days of Canada quietly powering America's homes without a second thought